Welcome to the Greenway with Mac, a channel dedicated to active transportation. This video is part of a series from Valencia, Spain, and we are finally exploring the treasures of Turia Park. The metro system has created a list of 18 bike routes that start at one metro station and end at another one. This is Route 2, called Turia Garden, and I've decided to cover it in reverse since I think visitors are more likely to be staying here by the beach. We are only a few hundred feet away. We went right past this spot in my Bicimetro Route 3 video, and you can click above to follow that one back to the beach. We begin this ride at the Marina Real J. Carlos tram stop, which is on Metro Valencia's Line 8, and then cut through the heart of Valencia using the city's world-class urban greenway called Turia Park, and continue out the northwest corner of the city. It's about a 1.5 mile trip to Turia Park, completely in protected bike lanes. The low-stress trip through Turia Park is 5 miles to the Bioparc. The final destination of Bicimetro Route 2 is a neat town just outside of Valencia city center called Benimamet. These bike lanes are part of an ever-expanding network that are a safe option for residents and visitors to move through the city without a car. Recent additions to this network have connected this area to one of the city's fastest-growing neighborhoods to the south, Narret. This includes new residential towers and the May 2022 opening of Metro Valencia Tram Line 10. As rents have increased in recent years, Narret still offers a lot of bang for the buck due to its proximity to both the beach and downtown Valencia. If you are planning to move to Valencia and have a tighter budget, then you may consider looking at apartments here. The investments made in the neighborhood are very recent, and I believe this to be one of the best up-and-coming places to live. It's just 2 kilometers from the City of Arts and Sciences, and about 3 to the sands of the beach. This is the Port of Valencia, which is a major economic engine for the city. The port is still the busiest in the Mediterranean, serving 7,500 ships per year. Over on the left is Tinglat 2, which was a warehouse used to store grain and vegetables. Tinglat means shed, and originally there were 6 of these, which were built between 1911 and 1923. Today only 3 remain, and this one is used as an event venue. Most of the time you'll see kids on bikes and all ages on roller skates. We are turning right, but you can get to the Narret neighborhood by continuing straight along Avenida del Ingenier Manuel Soto and crossing at Shipyard Bridge, called Port de las Taracenes. The next quarter mile is the only real part where you need to be extra cautious. We have a few large intersections to cross in the first part of this tour, but it will get way better once we get to Turia Park. I rode all over the city with my 7-year-old and would have felt completely comfortable riding this route with him. Check out this video that we did about his school commute on a bike. I'll offer my thoughts on riding in Turia Park once we get there in just a couple minutes. This large road is Avenida del Port, which is the most direct link between the port and the city center. There are protected bike lanes that will take you straight to the city center, but the route is interrupted by intersections and alongside speeding cars on an overbuilt road. We are sticking to the more pleasant and landmark-filled Bicimetro route, which will cover the entire 5 miles of Turia Park. Take a look at this network. The blue lines represent the protected bike lanes. Pretty much all the major roads now have at least one protected bike lane on one side of the street, and the bike lane we are in is a pretty good representation of what the rest of them will look like. If you would feel comfortable riding here, you should feel comfortable riding on all the major roads in the city. While this trip through Turia Park is one way to get to the beach from the city center, each of these blue lines show another way to get down to the beach. For example, the neighborhood Benimamet is north of the park, and it would make more sense to ride directly in one of those protected bike lanes rather than make the indirect route through the park. But if you're just visiting the city, then you can't miss this opportunity to see the wonderful and unique landmarks inside the park. And without any intersections to cross, the park is an amazingly safe way to go. This neighborhood is right on the edge of the Poblats Martins and Camins al Grau neighborhoods. It has some new construction, so I also think this is an interesting place to live, like Natzaret, due to its location between the beach and the park. However, it's still pretty industrial and lacks some of the vibe or the charm you look for in a stereotypical Spanish neighborhood. We are currently just north of where Valencia hosted the Formula One Grand Prix for 5 years. I covered in pretty good detail the story of the event's rise and fall in the Route 3 video, and this area is still an asphalt wasteland. While it may be difficult to see now, I believe there is a ton of potential to develop the site, which at one time had included Calatrava-designed residential towers originally planned to complement the City of Arts and Sciences complex. It's messy, but Calatrava himself has control of the site, and they either need to build his towers or a developer must purchase the land from him to do something else. The city is either stuck helping Calatrava to finance his vision or facilitating a high-dollar sale to a new developer. It's unfortunate and reveals that Valencia is a messy place. The site we are about to see is absolutely world-class, but this project is one of many examples around the world that demonstrates that Calatrava excels at both being a visionary architect and extracting large public sums of money. Like I said, Valencia is a messy place. Regardless, I'm still bullish on Valencia. These train tracks are the medium and long-distance tracks out of the city. If you take the train to Castelló or Barcelona, then you'll use this tunnel. The train tracks are Iberian gauge, which is a little thinner than standard gauge, which is what the high-speed trains use. This corridor is part of the Mediterranean corridor, which is slowly being converted to standard gauge. When that happens, north-south trains will be able to hit speeds over 180 miles per hour like they do east-west between Valencia and Madrid. Standard gauge is mostly what is used for European high-speed rail networks, so this change has also allowed services to offer one-seat rides between Spain and France. The tall pylon is the tower that supports Puente de la Presa del Oro, which takes its name from a dam that was on the Turia River. At 410 feet, this pylon is the tallest point in the city, and my compadre on this bike ride, Blaine Beck, advised me to use it as a reference point when we biked away from the city. Since the Valencia area is so flat, you can literally see this bridge from dozens of miles away in all directions. You'll see Lane occasionally on this trip, wearing that red jersey, and mostly during the second half of this trip. This bridge was designed by Santiago Calatrava, who is a recurring subject in this video. It was finished in 2008 and is a variation of his Alameda bridge in Seville. Calatrava has continued to riff on this original design, like the Sundial Bridge, which crosses the Sacramento River in Redding, California. Also part of the complex, behind the trees on the opposite side of the park, is the Oceanographic, which is Valencia's aquarium. It's the largest oceanographic aquarium in Europe, and is divided into regional areas like the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, wetlands, and the Arctic. The beluga whales were really unique and unlike anything I'd ever seen at any other aquarium. The City of Arts and Sciences is also a launching point for a trip down south to the Albufera, which is where rice has been grown since the Moors controlled Spain. I recorded that route as well, so subscribe to the channel to see it when it is finished. This path takes us into Turia Park, and I love being greeted by these palm trees. The City of Arts and Sciences is the stuff of science fiction, from the TV show Westworld, to the film Tomorrowland, to the upcoming season of Star Wars Andor. This complex has been used as the setting for creators who are looking for architecture unlike anything else in the world. The architect Santiago Calatrava grew up in Valencia and was recruited to build this amazing complex. In 2007, the destination was voted by the people of Spain as one of the 12 treasures of the Kingdom of Spain. And this is saying something in a country that is absolutely filled with natural and man-made treasure. The final destination of Bicimetro Route 2 is Benimamet, which is where Calatrava was born and grew up. We will go right by his childhood home in the follow-up to this video. The building on the left, Logora, recently rebranded as Caixa Forum, is a covered plaza that has been used to host concerts and sporting events, such as the Valencia Open 500, which was a stop on tennis's ATP Tour. It was closed the year that we were here, but it is now open and has exhibits on ancient civilizations and technological innovation. This large louvered building is the Prince Felipe Museum of Science. The structure is designed to look like the skeleton of a whale, which looks like this on the opposite side. Inside there are a series of exhibits that include an exhibit about space and a large section for children. We came here and saw chickens hatch and little digital alien guys like this. Another highlight from here was seeing the Ninots on display in the lead-up to the Fallas Festival. The round structure is the Hemispheric, which is an IMAX theater and planetarium. It's supposed to look like an eyeball, but I've always thought it kind of looked like a big bug with an aggressive stance. What do you think? Behind both of those buildings is Le Umbraco, which translates to umbrella. This structure has a lovely, semi-covered sculpture park on top with a portico and parking structure underneath it. The Montolivet Bridge divides the complex elegantly by matching the aesthetics of the complex in the middle of the span. The outside ends are less stressed up, but the bridge itself does a pretty good job of hiding the fact that thousands of cars are speeding overhead. Listen how quiet it is as we pass underneath. And finally, this large structure that I think looks like a really cool helmet is the Queen Sofia Palace of the Arts. This 200-foot tall architectural wonder comprises several halls and a performance theater. The City of Arts and Sciences receives some criticism for its cost and for being difficult to maintain, so I'll acknowledge that out front. But it's hard to dispute that this location is an absolutely stunning world-class landmark. Personally, I can say that I did not know anything about Valencia before seeing pictures of the complex. Once I did, I knew I had to go, and had no idea at the time that my family would spend a full year here. Once we get to this part of the Turia, we have left the City of Arts and Sciences. Off to our right is the Rose Garden of Montolivet. There are walking paths, some small canals, and some places to sit. There's also this cool statue of Neptune, which looks awesome in a picture with the Palace of the Arts in the background. Just on the other side of the garden from us is an outdoor cafe, if it's time for an espresso or a snack. Behind those trees is a park for skating. They have some ramps and even an 80s-style swimming pool that bikers and skateboards regularly use. Little ones also slide down the pool walls, climb up the ramps, and just hang out on the edge. There's also a playground back there, in addition to a free mini-golf course, if you bring your own ball and club. Turia Park has 18 bridges that divide it into 16 segments, which you will see called trams on Google Maps. We entered the park at section 16, and it counts down to 1, where this video will conclude. We are already in section 12, where you can find the one-of-a-kind, whimsical playground called Gulliver Park. The huge fiberglass structure is the titular character from the book Gulliver's Travels. In the story, Gulliver swims to the island of Lilliput after a shipwreck, where he is tied down by the native 6-inch-tall Lilliputians. In the park, visitors climb staircases to scale the giant and then slide down his body. Admission is free and it opens at 10 a.m. every day and stays open to different times, depending on the season. The Angel Custodio Bridge carries 8 lanes of car traffic over the park, and it was completed in 1948. The bridge is best viewed at night when those lanterns are lit up, and it is quieter from fewer cars. If you take this ramp to exit the park, then you will be in the neighborhood of La Gran Via. It's an excellent location because of its proximity to the tree-lined Alameda that bears the same name, and a bunch of high-end bars, restaurants, coffee shops, and retailers. This also means it's one of the costlier neighborhoods to live in Valencia. In many sections of the park, the path will look like this. The painted lane separates people on wheels in this smaller area, and there is one of these near the wall on the other side of the park. Most people on wheels are good about sticking with the bike lane, but riders can go pretty fast. If you're riding with smaller kiddos, then I don't think it's a big deal to ride slow outside of the bike lane. The lane markings do seem to indicate the paths are one way, but it's common to see them used as bidirectional lanes, and I've never heard anyone say that we were using it wrong. At the Music Palace of Valencia, we are crossing to the other side of the park. In front of it is its fountain, and a dance club regularly hosts swing dancing right there by the pergola. Off to the right is a nice restaurant with a great patio. Occasionally they host movie nights over there as well, and I even remember seeing a film festival taking place in that same spot. The Music Palace is home to the Valencia Orchestra, and most of its programming is classical music. The palace opened in 1987, but the part that we can see is the extension into the park that was added in 2002. There is a symphony hall with 1,700 seats and a chamber hall with 400. In the trees to the left is a square surrounded by white columns, which is a popular spot for yoga clubs in the park. The next bridge we come to is Aragon Bridge. This was built in 1933 and connects Gran Via del Marqués del Turia with the Mestalla neighborhood. Mestalla is the name of the stadium where Valencia FC play their home games and is another great neighborhood. The location is awesome. It's Valencia, so there are plenty of places to eat and drink everywhere, and game days here are electric. Several of our friends swear by this neighborhood, and it's easy to see why. I do have one tip for you if you've never been to a game and you're coming from the US. None of the stadiums in La Liga sell alcohol, so if you like having a drink at the game, or you're not really into soccer, then find a nice spot next to the stadium to have the best experience. One of Turia's best bridges is this one, Pont del Mar. This bridge replaced the original wooden span in this spot, which was washed away in 1591. For centuries, this was the main route between the city center and the port. Any time of day, this magnificent structure makes anyone a professional photographer. The still pond mirrors the bridge from below. The stone is weathered but sturdy. And since 1933, it has been car-free, now bracketed by these beautiful staircases. Flower Bridge gets its name from the flowers that adorn each railing. The flowers are replaced 4 times a year so that they are always in bloom. From what I can tell, it recently became the Rita Barbera Bridge because everyone called it Flower Bridge when we were there, but the name seems to have changed on Google. This open space is where the July Festival is held each summer. The festival has carnival rides and is a nice place to come in the evening once the heat of the summer cools. When Citadel was shooting the TV series here, this location was used for offices and hiring extras. We came to this segment quite a bit. Behind the trees is a rope pyramid structure that stretches 30 or 40 feet high and is a great place for your kid to climb up to the top and then scare the crap out of you. A little further into the trees is an outdoor cafe, which is an idea that more American parks should steal. We kept them in business by picking up snacks, treats, and cold drinks. It was one of our favorite places to meet up with friends that had kids. Alameda Metro Station has a bunch of different lines that stop here, so this is an easy place to access the park if you are far away from the city center, but close to a metro station. Exhibition Bridge is also called Combe Bridge or Calatrava Bridge because it, along with the metro station, was designed by Calatrava and built simultaneously. On the other side of the park is a soccer field where the local club teams play. If you exit the park here and go left or west, you'll first pass Porta de la Mar, which is a really neat monument inside a large traffic circle. You'll then be on Carrer de Colón, which is one leg of the ring road around the city center. The Colón neighborhood also has a metro station, a higher-end mall, and the Colón market. While we are now on the other side of the park, you can see that the bike lanes are similar as before. In general, there is a walking and biking path near the wall on each side, and commonly they are divided with paint only. Bikes may end up in the pedestrian area, and pedestrians may stray into the bike section. Politely use your belt, and most people realize that they're in the wrong part. If that doesn't send the message, then someone else zooming past on a stand-up scooter will eventually do the trick. And up ahead is Pont del Mar, which is a bridge that is also from the 16th century. It was damaged in the floods of 1957 and then widened in 1964. I believe we are on the new side, as the texture changes dramatically if you look closely as we cross underneath it. Take a right here and go up the ramp to get to the Royal Gardens, which is an excellent city park. In it is the Science Museum, a fine art museum, and my personal favorite, the Kids Transit Park. The Kids Transit Park is an area where people can walk and roll on bikes using bike lanes and sidewalks that are set up like a city. There are traffic lights and road signs at intersections and even a few bridges. The idea is that this is a safe place to teach kids how to ride in a city. Valencia had at least 3 of these, and it's an idea I hope we can spread to the US. I will definitely make a video showing these incredible transit parks. The Royal Gardens was also home to a hugely popular Christmas light display and the occasional concert. That building just outside the park is the Fine Art Museum that I'd mentioned just a second ago. The museum is known for its Valencian and Flemish paintings. Trinity Bridge is the oldest one that spans the Turia, and its pointed arches demonstrate that it is Gothic style. In 1402, they started construction on it, and it needed to be rebuilt after the flood of 1517. On the other side of the park is a large soccer field that is home to the Serranos Soccer Club. We didn't put Lucas in soccer while we were here, but this was the club that was recommended to me when I was asking around. I'll link to their website in the video description. Ponte Fusta translates to wood bridge from Valenciano. This is also the name of the tram stop that is just north of us. Tram line 4 stops here, and it is a short walk from the Carmen neighborhood where we lived. The tram terminates at the beach, and it was the most common way that we took beach trips. I was looking across the soccer field to see one of Valencia's most identifiable landmarks, the Serrano Towers, but they weren't visible from here. So here's what you will see if you exit the park. I made a video from Valencia's northern suburb of Alboraya that ended at those towers, which were one of the entrances into the old walled city. The towers and Serrano bridges are both worth spending some time to see, and there are cafes nearby if you want to take a break here. There is a pretty big Valenbici station as well, so you can plug your bikes in if you are using the local bike share. The St. Joseph and Serrano bridges are some of the oldest to cross the park, and a tip I have for you is to see them at night. Our first month in Valencia was a short-term rental right across from the park. I'd walk our dog in the evening, and the way these bridges were lit up would just stop me in my tracks. It felt easy to imagine what the city must have looked and felt like hundreds of years ago. And while a night walk in the park in many of the world's cities may sound sketchy, every time I did, there were others who were walking, resting, jogging, or scooting along on the bike path. Valencia is not immune from bad things, but my experience was that crimes were non-confrontational crimes of opportunity. But I never felt unsafe here at night. Turia Park wasn't always one of the world's great urban parks. Up until 1960, this was the Turia River, and each of these bridges were built to cross it. There have been as many as 75 recorded floods in the previous centuries, and in 1957 it was especially bad. It rained continuously for 3 days, with the final day being especially heavy. Water overflowed on both sides, but hit especially hard the areas north of the river like Campanar, up ahead, and Zaidia, which is across from the Serrano Towers. Some areas were under 15 feet of water. At least 81 people died in the flood, and over 5,000 homes were destroyed. In 1961, the government approved a plan called the Plan Sur, which rerouted the river south of the city center, creating a concrete channel like what you see in Los Angeles. While not the prettiest landmark, it has prevented any further disastrous flooding. At one point, some car brains actually wanted to use the space to create a highway from the airport to the port. Luckily, locals fiercely objected to this moronic plan, and in 1982 they approved the plan to divide the riverbed into 18 sections and develop them into a 5-mile park. Catalonian architect Ricard Bofill was recruited to develop the park, with some sections opening in 1986. The pergola back at the music hall and many of the ponds that you'll see were created by his firm. Up next is the Arts Bridge, which I believe is named for the modern art museum that it leads to on our left. We never made it to the art museum, but we did check out the prehistoric museum right next to it. It was fascinating to learn about the people native to this area that left behind artifacts in the caves they inhabited. My favorite exhibit that also terrified me was the one that said, "Partial skull fragment of a Neanderthal child with cat bite marks." Yikes. This segment of the park is one of the less developed areas, but you'll still find a playground, outdoor exercise equipment that people actually use, and several activity groups meet here for exercise classes.
This building is one of the few cafes inside Turia Park. There's a small playground nearby, so we occasionally met up with other families here.
There's a bus station up on the right that's not the nicest transit center around, but it did offer some low-cost options for traveling in and out of the country. The most interesting one was a 2-day trip that went all the way to Ukraine. We didn't take any of the buses, but 20 years ago I would have loved to launch an adventure from here. Next to it is New Center, which is a mall in one of several Corte Inglés locations in the city. Corte Inglés is a large department store, kind of like a JCPenney or a Sears back in the United States. The Turia metro stop has a connection to the mall's basement. This complex is an athletic field, and just behind it is a soccer field. This is one of the few places that I would come to and play in an organized pickup soccer game on Friday mornings. If that's something that you're interested in, then look up FC Urban Valencia. These guys organize games every day of the week and all over the city. Take this ramp to get to another commercial center. This one has the sporting goods store Decathlon, but more popular with us was the Cine Yelmo, which is a movie theater that offered some movies in English. Look for VOSE after the movie title, because those are the ones that will be in English and have Spanish subtitles.
The Campanar Bridge is named for the neighborhood just north of us, which means countryside in English. It was mostly farms for a long time, but now is home to about 10,000 residents. Metro Valencia lines 1 and 2 stop at Campanar, and the neighborhood is just south of New Mestalla, which was supposed to be the new home to Valencia CF, one of the local soccer clubs. Maybe I'll bring it up in another video, as it's just too sad, but this half-finished stadium has essentially been a crater in the Benimamet neighborhood for a decade and a half. At least Calatrava's residential towers were never built, rather than litter the skyline and landscape unfinished. This is segment 2, which means we are getting close to the end of the park. On the other side of this soccer pitch are both a futsal and basketball court. Of all the segments in the park, this is probably the best candidate to receive a little TLC. The fields and courts are nice, but it is pretty run down as you get close to the yellow bridge. This building is called the Old Ware of the Aquella de Rovea and is, or was, part of the irrigation for the local farms. I never had any issues in this area, but I did read a few things that said this area may be a little sketchy at night. The yellow bridge is still functional for crossing the park or using it to take some pictures. I personally wouldn't spend too much time here. And the final segment starts here after the yellow bridge, and I think it's really nice. The path changes to these red bricks, the garden is maintained well, and there are some unique features. There is a square-shaped track that they call a kickboard area. It's a series of ramps that can be used for skateboards or even kids on bikes. I never seem to see anybody on it though. There is also a designated area for roller skating. On the other side of the park are some places to play table tennis and other tables with a chessboard built in. The bridge is the October 9 Bridge, which is named for the day that celebrates Valencian community and commemorates James the Conqueror's entry into the city of Valencia. The bridge was also built by Santiago Calatrava and was finished in 1989. The span connects the Sant Pau and New Moles neighborhoods, and the latter is to the south and home to the October 9 metro station. Also nearby of significance is the Valencian History Museum. Around the final corner is Capçalera Park Lake. Technically, we are now in Capçalera Park, which is gorgeous in its own right. The way they've used rocks to neatly shape the park is really impressive. The lake is the centerpiece that invites you to imagine what it must have been like to have the Turia running through this area. There is a cafe here and you can rent small boats. The paths are lined by rock walls that invite you to wander and explore. It's green and lush with scattered areas to sit and have a picnic. There's even a small amphitheater tucked away in this corner. I could have spent many more hours here than I did. And that's the end of Turia Park, so I think it's an appropriate spot to end this video. Part 2 picks up right here and shows you the less intuitive route up to Benimamet. This is the village where Calatrava was born, and I'll share more about his life and accomplishments.
If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next great bike route.